Welcome, ghouls and gals. Today I'll be reading Order Up. Remember, kids, if bullying or violence is not your thing, skip this video. For everybody else, book, come now, come. Order up. Hey, Shitstain, what did you bring me for lunch? Devin said, smacking her on the back of the head as he slid into the seat beside her. Taylor flinched as she hunched over her lunchbox. Devin rested his head on his hand, an evil smirk spreading across his face. I brought a peanut butter sandwich, she whispered, head hanging low. Oh, come on now. I said I wanted a big, fat cheeseburger. I don't eat meat. Whipping his hand out, he struck her in the back of the head. Taylor's head snapped forward, glasses flying onto the stone table. The lunch isn't for you, Shitstain. It's for me. The courtyard erupted with laughter. Devin's gang of goons rounded the corner, pulling Emmett in the center of them. Since I'm not a fan of peanut butter, being the nice guy that I am, I'm going to give my lunch to Emmett. Pulling with all his might, Emmett fought against the two boys pulling his arms. Pushing him down in the seat opposite of Taylor, his brown eyes were full of fear, and blood trickled down his nose. A blue bruise blossomed over his right eye and cheek. I can't eat that. I'm really allergic to peanuts, Emmett said, looking frantically from Devin to Taylor. Sinister laughter echoed off the brick wall. Smiling, Devin turned his attention to Emmett. Pushing his head onto the table, Devin ground his face into the warm stone. Oh, Emmett, I know you're trying to watch your weight. Grabbing the sandwich from Taylor, shaking hands, he dropped it on the table in a white pile of bird poop. I said, I'm a nice guy, and I wanted to share my lunch with you. Releasing his head, Emmett slowly sat up, scratches marring the right side of his face. Eat the sandwich, Devin hissed through clenched teeth. Emmett slowly raised the sandwich to his lips. Hesitating, he looked at Devin, who made a mock chomping motion. Taking a bite of the sandwich, he slowly chewed. Spitting the chewed food onto the table, Devin cursed and shot to his feet. What the fuck, you stupid son of a... Emmett's hands went straight to his throat, eyes wide, making a loud gasping sound as he looked around frantically. Where's his backpack? Taylor shrieked, jumping to her feet. Dumbfounded glances met her in reply. He needs his EpiPen. His throat is closing. We, walked with him from the lunchroom. Todd stumbled out, eyes wide in shock. Emmett wreathed on the ground, his skin tan taking on a blue hue. Walk my ass, she bellowed, turning to run into the brick building. Devin's fist flew into her gut, knocking the wind from her lungs. He pushed her to the ground. Better not tell a soul about this, he commanded. Grabbing Todd and Lincoln by the arm, they ran the other direction. Regaining her balance, she limped into the glass double doors. Students huddled around the window and watched her walk inside. Blood saturated her ripped khaki pants, the red river winding down into her black shoes. Kevin sheepishly came forward, eyes glued to the ground, arms straight out, handed Taylor the backpack. Snatching it from his hand, she returned to the pale Emmett. Gasping like a fish, his eyes wide and empty, didn't meet her gaze. Rummaging through the backpack, she pulled out his EpiPen. Flicking the cap off, she stabbed him in the thigh. Falling back onto her butt, Taylor hugged her knees, sobbing into her green polo. The doors flew open. Miss Markle charged past her, knocking her sideways. This is why we don't eat peanut butter in school. How could you give him that? You knew he was allergic. Go see Principal Roberts now. Sneering at Taylor, she checked Emmett's breathing, punching 911 into her phone. I said now, Miss Markle ordered. But I didn't give it to... Not another word. Devin told me everything, she said, nodding her chin to the door. Leaning against the building, Devin had a shit-eating grin plastered to his face. I couldn't believe it when I saw her force him on the ground. I thought they were buddies, Devin said, batting his long black lashes at Taylor. Pushing up to her feet, she slowly made her way into the school. The 3-story building was casting an eerie shadow over the courtyard. "See you tomorrow, shit stain, and you better have my lunch," he whispered to her as she passed. The blare of the ambulance roared into the parking lot, the silence echoing off the building. The students whose faces were plastered in the window at least had the decency to look ashamed as she started her walk to the principal's office. Glancing back, she saw the paramedics hoist Emmett into the ambulance. Wiping her eyes, she pushed the door open to the cafeteria. Lincoln was leaning against the wall waiting. Fear glued her feet to the floor. Halting her march, swallowing hard, she looked around for an escape route. Pushing off the wall, he started stalking over to her. Throwing her hands up to cover her face, she waited for the blow to knock her down. "I didn't say anything," she mumbled. "I know. Will you put your arms down?" he said. Lowering her arms, she eyed Lincoln warily. Shoulders slumped, he had his hands shoved into his khaki pockets. The sleeves of his blue polo were rolled up to his elbow. "Devin, he's usually just having a good time, you know?" Jaw dropping, Taylor's eyes bugged out of her head. "He's what?" she said, flabbergasted that those words left his mouth. "He doesn't want to hurt anybody. It's just jokes. But this time he went way too far. I didn't know he was going to give him the PB&J. He just said to bring him outside. That shit stain, you were hiding in the courtyard during lunch." Toeing the ground, his eyes still glued to the floor, he told Miss Markle a crazy story. Is Emmett going to be okay?" I'm not sure if I was too late. He wasn't even looking at me. Peanuts closed his throat. He couldn't breathe." Tears erupting from her eyes, she wiped the snot on her sleeve. "I'm going to see him after school." Finding the courage to walk past him, she hugged the opposite wall as she passed. Lincoln turned on his heels and started to follow her down the hall. Stopping at the stairwell, she paused. She could see him standing behind her, shifting his weight as he waited for her to walk on. Lincoln, if it's all the same to you, if Devin told you to push me down the stairs, could you just do it at the bottom instead? He broke 4 of my ribs last year, and I just don't want to deal with that again, especially not today." Bracing, she waited for the pain to erupt in her skull. That blow never came. "It's not even like that, Taylor. I'm going with you to talk to Principal Roberts. He really hurt someone today, and I'm not sure he wouldn't do something like that again. You should have seen the show he put on for Miss Markle. I told him he had a peanut allergy. Devin said anaphylaxis meant a rash." Walking past her into the stairwell, Lincoln took them 2 at a time. Following up behind him, she made sure to keep a few stairs in between. Knocking softly on the mahogany door, he waited for the answer. "Enter," he said in a clipped tone. Pushing open the door slowly, Lincoln walked in, flanked by Taylor. "Ah, Mr. Bevy, I see you walked the attempted murderer here yourself." "Actually, sir, I wanted to talk with you too. It wasn't Taylor that made Emmett eat the peanut butter sandwich. It was Devin." Sitting in the chair across from the large desk, Lincoln waited for a response, looking up from the ground for the first time since he pushed Emmett into a chair, looking for meaning in the principal's gaze. He came up empty. "Now, Lincoln, I'm sure you're not expecting me to believe that my son caused this mess," Principal Roberts retorted stone-faced. "It's true. He took my sandwich and he made him eat it." "You don't get a word here, Ms. Tilly. Devin wasn't alone when he came to the faculty lunchroom. Todd was with him. But I'm guessing after going balls deep in her, you're prepared to cover for her, even if it means a student might have died. We have had no word on Emmett's condition." A loud gasp sounded in unison. "No, we never, I haven't, I'm still," Taylor stammered, looking between the 2 men. "She's telling the truth," Lincoln said, staring at the floor. "I see you're riding this one out to the end, huh? Well, you both get in-school suspension starting tomorrow. Pending the news on Mr. Rafiq, it might be a permanent suspension from the district. Out. Both of you." Interlacing his fingers, he leaned into the desk. His eyes narrowed. "I expected better from you, Lincoln. If you change your mind about what happened, please come see me." Walking out in silence, tears spilling over her lashes, the anguish broke free as sobs wrecked her chest. Do you want me to walk you home? He asked, voice small as a child. I'm not going home. I'm going to see Admit. At least I hope there's still someone left to see. Wrapping his arms around her, he pulled her into a hug. I can walk you there if you... Pushing him away, she smacked his chest. It's your fault he's in there. I don't want to be around you, she screamed. Running down the stairs, he heard the front doors bang open. Stuffing his hands inside his pocket, he started his walk home. Pulling a phone, he began texting his classmates. Surely someone has Admit's number, right? 15 texts later, all saying a variation of the same, nope, or who? Sighing, Lincoln shoved his phone back into his pants pocket. Sprinting down the main road, Taylor hailed a cab to the hospital. Her leg bouncing quickened every mile closer they got to St. John's. Chewing on her nails, she stared at the window. Tears blurred her vision. Her phone vibrated in her pocket. Pulling it out of her ripped pants, she wiped her eyes, squinting at the screen. Growling in frustration, she pocketed the phone. Why did that ass have to break my glasses? She thought. The cabbie pulled to a stop in front of the ominous white building. Scanning the code on the back of the seat, she paid him, praying she hit the right tip amount. She exited the cab. Walking on shaky legs, she raced up the steps. Looking around the entryway, she went over to the lady at the desk. I'm here to see Admit Rafiq. I'm not sure what room he's in. The woman eyed her suspiciously. Let me have a quick look here. I'm sure there isn't too many patients with that name. Laughing to herself, her eyes returned to the computer when the joke didn't return any laughter. Oh, let me call up and see if he can have a visitor. ICU is limited to 3. Picking up the black phone, she dialed the number. Taylor began to pick her nails again. The hushed pleasantries were taking too long, and she had to see him. Can I go? Taylor interrupted. Covering up the speaker of the phone, she glared daggers at her. Room 4016. Elevators on your left. Maybe try not to be rude next time, she snapped. Laughing, uncovered the speaker and returned to her conversation with whomever it was on the other end about shopping deals. Punching the up button repeatedly, she waited for the elevator to chime. You only have to push it once. A man's kind voice broke through her thoughts. Jerking in his direction, a chaplain was walking towards her. You know, if you need to talk, maybe leaning on God can help you through your troubles. Dead eyes returned his smile. I don't think God likes me too much, she said. Nonsense, child. God cares for all of his children. What makes you think he doesn't see your troubles? Gesturing her arms wide, the elevator chimed. Doors opened. She dashed inside, punching button 4. He was getting closer to the elevator. She punched the doors close button. Taylor didn't want to ride with him, even for a minute. The doors opened. A large green placard hung on the wall with room numbers and arrows. Following it around to the left, thankful for the big lettering. Stopping at 4016, she pulled up short. His mother and father sat at bedside. They sat draped over his unmoving form. A tube was sticking out of his mouth, the machine next to him buzzing. Gently knocking, Taylor waited outside of the door. His mom looked up with red, swollen eyes. She howled in pain, jumping from her chair and ran over. Wrapping her in a hug, Taylor's strong front busted open. Crying harder, she returned the hug. Tay, what happened? Miss Markle told us you forced him to eat peanut butter. There's no way. Holding her firm by the shoulders, his mother waited for a reply. Devin made him eat it. I tried to tell the principal, but he wouldn't believe me. I swear I didn't do it, Taylor said, rubbing her nose on her sleeve. Is he going to be okay? We're not sure. Doctor said he was without oxygen for a long time. He might not wake up. This is all my fault. He said he wanted to transfer schools, but I told him no. This school has the best academics in the area. I should have known he was being bullied. My Amit loved school before this year. Sobbing, her knees gave out. Falling into Taylor, Mr. Rafiq jumped up, taking his wife by the elbow. He walked her from the room. We'll be back after coffee and a little fresh air. No, he needs me. He needs you well, my love. Slowly approaching the bed, she sat on the edge, holding his hand. Still felt warm. That's a good sign, right? She thought. You have to get better. You can't let him win. She sniffed, eyes going blurry again. You can't leave me alone with Ruth on the debate team. She picks her nose. A half-hearted laugh rolled off her lips. Prom is a few weeks away. You said you'd go with me, remember? Taylor's phone vibrated again in her pocket. Leaning back, she answered the phone. Hello? Baby girl, where are you? Principal Roberts called me. I know there is no way you gave him peanut butter. What the hell happened? Her mother asked, words dripping with worry. I'm with Emmett. He's not okay, Mommy. They don't know if he will be. Sniffing, she stood up. I'll be home soon. Hanging up the phone with a click, she kissed Emmett on the cheek. Closing the door behind her, she left in silence. Her mother was waiting on the porch. She must have been waiting for a while. The steam no longer rolled off of her untouched coffee. Walking up the stairs like a zombie, Taylor plopped down on the steps. Leaning into her mother, she watched the car drive by. It was horrible, Mom. He started gasping and turned blue. I couldn't help him. I wasn't brave enough. Tears slid down her cheeks onto her mom's shoulders. I can't go back there. I can't. You have to. You can't miss school. I'll start calling around for a transfer, but honestly, I'm not sure another school will take you with what the principal will tell them. Devin told me to bring him lunch and I didn't. He wants a cheeseburger tomorrow. We don't even eat meat, her mother said flatly. I know. That's why he forced Emmett to eat my PB&J. That's simply barbaric. I bet if he had been at the Donner Party, he wouldn't have asked for a burger. I can research homeschooling, but we have to get a computer first. Patting her leg, Taylor sat up. Thanks, Mom. I'm going to bed. Slowly, she stood up. Sighing, she walked up the steps. Her mother released a loud gasp when she came face to face with the bloody ripped hole in the knee of her khakis. Walking down the hall was like trudging through cement. Dragging her feet forward step by step, she quietly closed her purple door behind her. Scooping up her spare glasses, she fell into bed. Unlocking her yellow iPhone, she searched Donner Party. A text alert startled her. Looking at the drop box, it said Emmett with a little red heart next to his name. I should have told him when I had the chance that I liked him, instead of asking him to prom. You know, like friends. Cringing at the memory of her prom request, she tapped the text icon. Hey Tay, it's Karina, Emmett's mother. You should come by tomorrow. They're doing a scan to see if he has any brain activity in the morning. It's not looking good. I'm sorry this might be the last text that you get from him. Seeing his name pop up made her heart soar to new levels, but that just worsened the drop she felt when her hopes got shot out of the sky. Opening her photo gallery, Taylor scrolled through the pictures of them. She had no more tears left to offer the world. She was all dried up. The sound of her alarm clock blaring made her jump up. Her phone went flying onto the floor. She wasn't sure when she fell asleep. Picking up her phone, she winced at the cracked screen. Changing into a new pair of khaki pants, and she smelled her polo. Shrugging, she wrestled her mane of brown curls into a bun. Lifting her green polo, she eyed her espresso-colored skin. Bending in the light, she couldn't see a bruise. But boy, could she feel its ghost on her skin. Sneaking past her mom snoring on the couch, Taylor headed to school. The in-school suspension classroom was nestled in the basement. I suppose troubled kids don't need sunshine, she mused. Taking the elevator to the bottom floor, opening the middle door, Taylor's face scrunched in confusion. One senior girl was sitting at the teacher's desk. Feet propped up, she popped a large pink bubble, not looking up from her Cosmo magazine. It's just you two in here today. Sit anywhere you want. They slid into the desk at the far wall, side-eyeing Lincoln. The boy had his head dropped into his hands. I have a hair appointment at 11, so you'll be on your own from 11 to, I don't know, lunch or something, she said, popping another large bubble. The sweet smell of bubblegum wafted across the room. Lincoln looked up at the news. A blue bruise bloomed across his eye and jaw. That's a good look for him, she thought, opening her history textbook. The time on the clock ticked forward at a slow pace. It was like the Twilight Zone down there. Taylor checked her phone multiple times to ensure the clock was in fact working. At 11 o'clock sharp, Stacy snapped her magazine shut. Popping another bubble, she huffed, looking at the two freshmen. I'm going to get my hair done. Try not to kill anybody with nuts while I'm gone. If you two get me in trouble for leaving, I will kill you both, she snapped. Flipping her bleach blonde hair, she slammed the door. I have to go get lunch, Taylor said, sliding out of her desk. slinging her backpack on one shoulder. What? You're leaving too? What are you getting for lunch? He trailed off, his meek voice fading into a whisper. Burgers, she snapped. Pulling the heavy door, the loud clank behind her echoed in the small room. Groaning, Lincoln laid his head back on the desk. Juggling the bags of Riot burgers, she struggled to open that door. Heaving it with her foot, panting, she pushed her way inside. Gee, thanks for helping out with the door, she said breathlessly. I couldn't hear you through the door, he mumbled, turning his head the other direction. The smell of burgers made his stomach growl. Pulling out her phone from her pocket, she scrunched her face up in confusion. What's Devon's number? I have his lunch, she said, staring at the floor. You cannot be serious, Lincoln scoffed. Amit is getting a scan to see if he has any brain activity today. I don't want to follow him. Oh, shit. I'll message him. That way he can't harass you at home. Pulling his phone out, his fingers flew across the screen. And sent. Rolling back over, he put his head down. Moments crawled by, and a drumming sound pounded on the door. Flinging it open, Devon's face lit up when he saw the bags. Fuck yeah, Riot Burger is my favorite. Pushing a stack of papers off the teacher's desk, he hopped on the end and sat, dangling his feet. Bring me my lunch, shit stain. Todd leaned against the desk next to him, mouth watering at the sight of the grease-stained bags. I brought one for Todd and Lincoln too, if you wanted to share your lunch, she mumbled, bringing the bags to Devon. Of course I'll share it with Todd. Lincoln is grounded though. Snitches don't get Riot Burger. Pulling the food out of the bag, he tore open the wrap, sneering at the lettuce. Pulling it off, he threw it at Lincoln. The wet leaf hit the back of his neck with a slap. Pulling the lettuce from his neck, Lincoln pulled his hoodie over his head and turned the other way. Rummaging through her backpack, Taylor smiled. I have something else for you as well, she said sweetly. Oh yeah? What's that? He asked, around a mouthful of food. Walking up to the table, she stood between the two boys. Did you know that Lake and Grady's dad is a pharmacist? Who? He asked, shoveling a handful of fries. In the blink of an eye, her hands lashed out, stabbing both of the boys in the thigh. What the fuck was that? Devon demanded, pulling her up by the collar of her shirt. He has a thing for young girls. He will do a favor for a favor. Dev, I don't feel so good. The room is spinning and I'm dizzy, Todd said, falling sideways and bouncing off the desk. He crashed into the floor. Wobbling on his feet, Devon drew back his fist. Laughing, Taylor pushed him in the chest. Tripping over the desk, Devon crashed into the floor. Jumping up to his feet, Lincoln rushed over to the boys, both laying on the ground, breathing steadily. What the fuck did you give them? He asked, horrified expression on his face. Oh, just a little anesthesia. Don't worry about it. It won't hurt them. You'll see. But just like Amit, you're going to be a good dog and do nothing but watch. Lashing out a third time, she stabbed Lincoln in the arm. Standing up, he held onto the desk to steady himself. Taking a shaky step forward, he landed on the floor next to the door. Step 1, knock them out, she said to herself. Pulling multiple bundles of rope from her backpack, she made quick work tying up the boys. Laying out different knives and snips on the table, she sat crisscross applesauce, waiting for them to wake up. Should be 5 or 10 minutes, he said. As if on cue, the boys began to stir, jerking their arms and legs. Panic sat in when they couldn't move. What the fuck? Untie me, shit stain, Devon commanded, hate pouring out of his eyes. This is fun, right? Just a little joking around? Kicking off the table, she walked into his view. Did you know that Amit is brain dead? Struggling against the rope, his facade faltered. That's nothing new. I've known that bit for years. Striking out her fist, connected with his face, pain exploded into her hand. Oh, that really hurts. Why do you guys punch people all the time? She asked, shaking her hand around violently. Todd began to scream, trying to wiggle free of confinement. You're awake. The show can start. Glancing at the clock on the wall, it read 11:37. We better get started before Stacy gets back. I have no idea how long it takes to bleach hair. What are you going to do? You'll never get away with this. I'm going to tell my dad. He will have you thrown in jail so fast. Devon sneered. Oh, I don't plan to get away with it. The pain that I paint on your faces is going to hold me over for 30 years or more. And if I ever get out, I'll come in, find you again, she said, venom dripping from her words. Todd, stick your tongue out. she said, picking up a pair of snips from the desk. What? Why? What are you going to do? I know how much you guys love meat, and being the nice girl that I am, I'm going to feed Devin lunch. Straddling over him, she sat on his stomach. No, you can't make me. I won't do it. Todd squealed, tears running down his face. That's okay. I can just take your ear and work my way in. Clamping down on his cartilage, she cut through his ear, ripping it away from his head, and blood gushed from the wound. A mangled hole was all that was left of his right ear. Stepping on his stomach, she made her way over to Devin. Have you ever heard of long pork? She asked, turning the ear over in her hands, and she watched the blood run down her wrist. You are seriously fucked, Taylor. Pausing, she cocked her head, looking at him. You know, that's the first time that you've called me by my name, Devin. Open, she said, squatting down in front of him. She flopped the ear in his face. Fuck no, get that away from me, he screamed, craning his neck to add distance. You have two choices, open or I'll take a finger. I'm sure Lincoln won't mind holding them until Stacy gets back, although he isn't looking so hot. Following her gaze over to Lincoln, who still laid in a crumpled heap on the floor, unmoving. A blue hue took over his pink skin. I might have given him too much, she shrugged, looking back to Devin. He did say everyone was different on dosing. Now, open, she barked, slapping him on the nose with the ear. Devin slowly opened his lips, and Taylor shoved the ear past his teeth. Chew it up and swallow. You like meat, right? Gagging on the rubbery texture, he threw up, spewing bile onto her shirt. I don't think so, Devin. I said chew it up and swallow. Covering his mouth with her hand, trapping the bile in his mouth, Devin lurched again, but she held firm. Gulping hard around the bile, he swallowed the ear. Good job, she said, striking out and hitting him in the side of the head with snips. I hope you don't mind I didn't use my hand, but that really hurt. Locking eyes again, one of Devin's pupils was large, taking up almost his whole iris. Oops, that might have been too hard. Todd, screaming, had fallen silent. Looking over at the kid, he had passed out from shock. Standing up, she kicked him in the gut. Todd, wake up. Having no response, she kicked him harder. Todd, it's your turn for lunch. You need to wake up. Shaking his shoulder, he finally made a few grunting noises. When their eyes met, his screams filled the room again. Now, Todd, it's lunchtime for you. No need to yell. Walking back over to Devin. She said, running her hands over the table. Ah, yes, this one. They say it's an eye for an eye, so it seems it's only fair since Emmett will never open his again. Grabbing him by the back of his head, she shoved the spoon into his eye socket. Pushing with all her might, the spoon broke free and his eye came out with a pop. Devin's screams covered Todd's as the boy began to thrash around on the ground. What in the world is all this racket? Stacy yelled, pushing open the door. It hit Lincoln in the head, stopping her from coming in. Pushing harder, the metal door smacked into his skull, a river of blood running onto the floor. Forcing her way into the door, Stacy screamed. Taylor was bent over Devin, holding an eye in one hand. In all fairness, I didn't use nuts, she said, shrugging, dropping his eye onto the floor. She stepped on it with a squish and made her way all the way back over to her seat. You know, I guess it's all fun and games until sometimes it's all ears and eyes. Until next time, happy hauntings.